Next chapter, climate. Now, we introduced the concept of weather in Form 1. We said weather is the state of the atmosphere of a particular place at a particular time. We also said the atmospheric conditions that describe weather include temperature, precipitation, pressure, wind, and humidity, and we called them elements of weather. These elements change frequently, but if observed over a long period of time, a pattern can be established. It is observed that during a year, the weather changes in cycles called seasons. By observing the weather patterns for longer periods, usually over 30 years, the climate of a particular place can be determined. By definition, climate is the average weather conditions of a place or a region which have been observed over a long period of time. Globally, vast differences can be observed on the climates of different parts of the world. Each climatic region has its own characteristic vegetation and wildlife. The climate of a place also influences the lifestyles of the people living in these places. We shall look at the world's climatic zones in the next chapter. Meanwhile, let us look at the factors influencing the climate of a region. There are many factors that affect the climate around the world, but the major ones are latitude, altitude, pressure and wind systems, continentality, ocean currents, and relief. Latitude is the measure of the distance of a location on the Earth from the equator. Latitude mainly affects the temperature of a place. Places located away from the equator receive less sunlight compared to those located closer to it. The Earth's curved surface is the main reason for this variation. The sun's rays fall almost perpendicularly on the equator and obliquely on the poles. As a result, places closer to the equator receive more intense heat and light. The climate of these places is generally warm, sunny, and humid. On the other hand, places closer to the poles receive less direct rays and hence they receive less heat and light. These places have a relatively cooler or moderate climate. The north and south poles receive the least intense rays. The climate near the poles is cold throughout the year. In fact, regions nearest to the poles are the coldest on Earth. Altitude is simply the height above sea level. The higher one travels into the troposphere, the cooler it becomes. The rate at which temperature drops with increasing altitude is known as the lapse rate. On average, the lapse rate of the troposphere is 6.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer. Therefore, mountainous areas which have a high altitude are usually cooler than the coastal areas that are at sea level. Thirdly is pressure and wind systems. Now, wind is a medium of transfer of heat. Variations in air temperature also control the pressure and wind systems of a place. Warm air has a tendency to rise, creating low pressure areas, while cold air tends to sink, creating high pressure areas. In order to equalize the difference in pressure, air moves quickly from high pressure areas to low pressure areas. As a result, wind blows outwards from high pressure locations towards lower pressure areas. The differences in air pressure near the equator and the poles are the main factors that influence global pressure and wind systems. When warm winds blow over an area, they will warm the area. If they carry moisture, rainfall may be experienced. Cold winds will cool the region over which they blow. Dry winds with no moisture will mean no precipitation over the area they blow. Similarly, the altitude of a place also affects the pressure and wind systems of that place. The distance of a place from the ocean or sea is another factor that influences the climate of that place. For example, the climate of a coastal land is different from that of a landlocked region. As compared to land, water responds slowly to temperature changes. It takes longer for water to get heated and to cool down. As a result, places near the sea experience mild temperature. They are neither too hot in summer nor too cold in winter. And this is because the ocean or sea has a moderating effect on the air temperature of the land. As the distance from the sea increases, the moderating influence decreases and the weather conditions become extreme. Places farther away from the sea generally have very hot summers and very cold winters. This is known as continentality. Another important factor influencing climate is the circulation of air and water. The air in the atmosphere and water in the oceans are in constant motion. These two motions distribute heat around the world in regular patterns. Warm air and water move towards the poles, while cool air and water move towards the equator. Coastal areas with warm or cold currents flowing past them get warmed or cooled if the winds are onshore. The other main factor influencing climate is relief. Mountains often act as natural barriers for wind and moisture, affecting the climate of the surrounding areas. The windward side of a mountain may have a very different climate from that of the rain shadow side. Vast mountain ranges can create a shadow on one side, which hardly receives any rainfall. The other side receives heavy rainfall. Describing the climate of a place requires the use of correct terminologies. Temperature and rainfall are the main elements used to describe climate, and rarely we use cloud cover, humidity, atmospheric pressure, and others. It is important to use specific figures together with descriptive words such as high, low, warm, cool, moderate, and so on. Next, we look at the climatic regions of Kenya. Now, Kenya is located in East Africa, with the equator passing through it, cutting it into nearly two equal halves. Kenya's climate varies considerably across the country. The eastern coast that borders the Indian Ocean is warm and tropical. Over the savannas to the north are hot and dry. The highlands have cool air and high humidity, leading to the temperate and highly populated inlands. Kenya enjoys sunshine all year round, but it's usually cool at night and early morning. Most parts of the country experience two rain seasons, the long rains running over a 10-week period in between April and June, and the short rains over a 5-week period between November and December. Based on the global classification, Kenya's climate can generally be described as hot with equatorial and coastal belt. The rest of the country experiences tropical continental climate, although this climate is modified due to factors such as relief, continentality, and the influence in the Lake Victoria region. We can generally demarcate Kenya into 6 climatic regions. First is the modified equatorial climate, which occurs along the coastal strip and around the Lake Victoria basin. Along the coastal area, this climate extends from the Somali to the Tanzanian border, covering the counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, some parts of Kwale, and Lamu. This region generally receives rainfall throughout the year with a double maxima in May and October. The amounts are actually lower compared to true equatorial regions. The amounts also vary according to the location. These areas also experience high humidity due to proximity to the ocean and the high temperature. In the Lake Victoria Basin, this climate is experienced in counties near the lake, including Kisumu, Homa Bay, Siaya, Migori, Kisii, Nyamira, Busia, and Vihiga. The temperatures are generally lower than those of true equatorial regions, with an average annual temperature of 22 to 32 degrees Celsius, and this is due to the moderating effects of the lake. Rainfall varies from one place to another. Next is the modified tropical or subtropical climate. This is usually experienced in the east, central, and western parts of Rift Valley all the way to the Central Highlands. The counties under this climate would include Bomet, Kericho, Nakuru, Nyandarua, Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Embu, Murang'a, Kiambu, Nairobi, Bungoma, Kakamega, and Trans Nzoia. The tropical continental climate which should be experienced in this area is greatly modified by altitude and relief, including aspect, giving rise to a subtropical climate. The mean annual temperature varies according to the altitude of a place. On average, it is between 17 and 24 degrees Celsius. The lower slopes are warmer than the higher slopes because the temperatures are modified by altitude. At much higher altitudes, the annual temperature is below 10 degrees Celsius. The mean annual range of temperature is small, ranging between 3 degrees Celsius and 4 degrees Celsius. Areas experiencing this type of climate receive rain throughout the year, with the mean annual rainfall being high. It ranges between 1,000 and 1,500 millimeters. Some sections, especially on the mountains, receive higher rainfall, over 2,000 millimeters. Humidity can be described as moderate. Next is the tropical continental or semi-desert climate. This covers nearly half of Kenya. It includes a very big part of Turkana County, Samburu, Kajiado, Makueni, part of Taita Taveta, Tana River, Garissa, a big part of Wajir, Mandera, and a bit of Marsabit. The temperatures are high throughout the year, ranging between 22 and 27 degrees Celsius. The mean annual range of temperature is small, up to 5 degrees Celsius. This is because the sky is clear most of the time. In areas of high relief, temperatures may be slightly lower. Rainfall is low and unreliable and generally does not exceed 500 millimeters annually. Next is the tropical climate. The county that lies squarely in this climate is Narok, although a part of the southern Taita Taveta and Kwale regions also experience this climate. It is a continuation of the tropical climate of central Tanzania. Temperatures are as high as those of tropical continental climate, but in areas of high relief, they are modified. The influence of relief makes the climate more suitable for human habitation than that of the semi-desert region. Narok, which is at the altitude of 1,890 meters, has a mean annual temperature of 16.5 degrees Celsius. In the lowlands, daily maximum temperatures of over 30 degrees Celsius are common. Rain falls in one season and is generally low. The amounts are slightly higher than those received in the semi-desert areas, but there is a definite dry season which can last up to 6 months in some places. Next is the tropical northern climate, which covers only a small section of Turkana and West Pokot counties at the Kenya-Uganda border. It is a continuation of the tropical continental climate of northern and eastern Uganda. Average temperatures are high, but are slightly modified in some places because of high altitude. The mean annual rainfall is about 850 millimeters, and it mainly falls between June and September. There is a long dry season which lasts about 6 months. Finally is the desert climate, and this is experienced in the central parts of northern Kenya, surrounded by the tropical continental climate. It takes sections of Turkana, Marsabit, and Wajir counties. Temperatures are high on the low-lying plains, with a mean annual temperature of about 28 degrees Celsius. Day temperatures are very high, with maximum temperatures sometimes going beyond 35 degrees Celsius. March is usually the hottest month. Minimum temperatures can be over 20 degrees Celsius, but the diurnal range is usually small. The annual rainfall is usually less than 250 millimeters. Wajir's mean annual rainfall is about 237 millimeters, while Lodwars is 190 millimeters. This rainfall is very little, qualifying the region to be a desert. The area is characterized by descending or diverging winds which do not bring rain. The sky is usually cloudless, resulting in intense solar insolation during the day and high terrestrial radiation at night. Sandstorms are common in this region.